Okay, so fashion posing, when I'm choosing poses, the first thing that I'm going to do is think about, am I trying to draw any references? So I'm going to type in 50s fashion poses, or fashion models would be another one. I like to draw a lot of inspiration from different time periods in history, and a lot of the fashion posing I really like from the 50s, but I tend to not necessarily be drawing 50s clothing. And so the first thing I might do is find some pictures that I like of models. I think I'm going to choose this one just because it has some nice, ooh, cool. It's already a JPEG. It has two models in it, which is basically why I'm choosing it for right now. But I would just go look at different model poses and different fashion drawings and look at how those poses are, because you can stretch what the figure can do beyond its actual limitations if you're not looking at an actual human body. Especially until you really understand where the mass sits in the body and the anatomy of musculature. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do some thumbnails, and I'm going to start with here, gal on the left. I'm going to start with her head, kind of facing like that. This line got wonky. There we go. And then I'm going to look for that S curve. If I was to mark this up right now, let's see if I can do this nicely with a mouse. The S curve of her body, she has a head sitting through here, and then that curve comes like roughly like that. It actually sticks out just a little bit more like that. So let's redo it. Here, the S curve is more subtle. Oops. We have here, and then out, and then just back in. It's like very subtle. So I'm going to re-replicate that here. Let's see, come out this way. Oh, I was looking at the wrong person. Come around the back of the head, and then back out. There we go. And down through here.
You're doing the left.
Yep. Wait. Yes, left. So this figure. Then I'm going to map in the bottom of the rib cage, is what I typically do first, and the shoulders. And then I will draw this curve to help me find my bust point about halfway in between the bottom of this rib cage and my shoulder line. And then I will put a line here for the top of the hip, a line there for the groin, my circular pieces for those hip joints, and then it looks like I have a leg coming out this way, and it's like curving out. The knee curves out a bit like that. So if I'm ever wondering like what direction my sphere is kind of facing, I give it these little crosshairs so that I know that's where my sphere is. And then this one is just a little bit back here and centers back under her body. And then she's in flats, so this foot is less of this shape and just a little flatter. She just has like a little half-inch like platform on the back of her shoe. Considered flats in the 50s. And then the shape of that foot goes through there. It's also just so helpful to like actually have these figures to look at. Now, these are real people and not fashion illustrations, although they are models as well. So they've been selected to fit closer to the fashion illustration proportions. I'm still probably going to go in and make this, keep bringing that out too far, make this a little bit more extremized, where, oh, this leg has been kicked out, maybe even just a little bit more. This leg coming in a little bit more as well. And then shortening up the torso compared to the leg here. So here my torso is hitting, you know, about another like quarter deeper. And now I can figure out the posing of the hand. And let's see. Okay. This one's a weird one because you have to deal with the foreshortened arm of that arm coming up. And then I even brought it too far out. Really pay attention here of like, where is this line between the shoulder and the elbow? How far apart are those? And the wrist. So this is super short. So if you have to do these little drawings, go ahead and do them because they help you start figuring out proportions of things more quickly. So I'm doing these little skeletons, not necessarily this big. Sometimes I'll just do like, I guess I'm stuck in a scale right now where I'm like, okay, what would this person look like? This is my little skeleton. And then, you know, just a short, like, just the barest minimum that I personally need in order to understand where my big landmarks are here. So I'll sketch out a bunch of these until I find the one that I like. I'll sketch out the second lady real quick, just how I would do that. Let's see. I always like thrusting this out like way too far. And then let's do, I'm gonna need that head to be bigger then. Okay. And then this is just kind of falling down and her legs are angling in. That foot comes like this, and this foot comes like that. Okay, so I would develop these little collection of these little figures, and the next thing that I am going to do is I'm going to grab either a darker pencil or a micron pen, and I'm going to begin to flesh out one of these little figures. I'm going to choose this one. I drew it nice and big and with good proportions. So I'm going to start there. This is kind of a thin micron pen. Let me grab a bigger one. All right. So now I'm going to actually come in and draw things like the bust, taper the body in towards my waistline, draw in any of the like fleshy parts of my body, keeping in mind that the widest part of basically all of my limbs, except for a little bit, there's a slight change on the upper arm, about 1/3 down. So if I'm like, this is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, is, sorry. I don't know, I can't do math tonight, sorry guys. 1, 2, 3, that's right. Is about where the widest part of that comes across. So sometimes I'll just give myself that line to start with, that I know, 1, the leg curves, so I give it a curved line. And I have the widest part there, and then the calf also curves. Because of my perspective, it curves down like this as a cylinder instead of up. And that way I know when I am hitting these points and then tapering back to my circle, I am giving it enough width. It's just by giving myself this these marks. It's almost like you're drawing a jointed doll. You can think of that, or one of those mannequin figures underneath to help flesh out these points. There are a series of cones and tapered cylinders. So it's like that. This comes up here. Connection. I need to adjust. Oh. The hit point through there. And I can make more adjustments to my figure when I actually do my fashion drawings, or if I transfer this to make a more realistic croquis. And one really nice thing about looking at drawings too, especially, I find it really easy to figure out. Of course, I just wasn't looking at my drawings, so I did that wrong. How feet tend to work and look is when they're wearing these ballet style flats, and so it simplifies the toe box for you here and takes away the need to be worried about what that looks like, and then you can just simplify the foot shape nicely. Now I need to figure out my arm. Once again, my lower arm has this about 1/3 of the way down width point that I taper out and then back in from. And then, oh, I have the hand in front here. I like to draw hands just, if this is my wrist point, I do a wedge that fans out like this. And then my thumb is a secondary wedge that comes back from my wrist point. And then I have a joint, and I have 4 joints here across that. Each of these fingers comes out to a joint, and then there's another length beyond there. There's actually even another little joint that is the end of this finger. In fashion drawing, usually the hands are so small that like drawing that in as anything other than just like a slight indentation gets very, very tricky because it's just tiny, tiny lines. I'm not necessarily drawing this whole like nightmare skeleton rake thing for each hand. Usually what I will do is I'll draw this shape, and then if the fingers are spread out, the angle becomes wide like this. If the fingers are relaxed and held together, they actually angle slightly inward like that. So I'll just angle the fingers together in the direction that they're going and give myself kind of just a little curving scoop shape. And I will also put the thumb in there. Back here, I am saved a little bit by the fact that I can't see a lot of my hand. And I have my head shape, which we're just going to cover here in a moment. My neck, sloping of my shoulders. Building out of this shape. For now, you can use this kind of shape. There's just like a little bit of weirdness with how the upper arm sits because of our musculature, because we have a muscle that comes down here that is slightly tapered out at a different point from the muscle that comes through here. I like to just give a little line here for the armpit, go out, and then back in. And now I have a more fleshed out figure. I might give a dot for the bottom of the rib cage and a little bit for the belly button. And then I will also usually dot in a front center line, so where that center comes directly between along the sternum, along the breastbone, and down through the center of the groin. That way I can keep track of where the center of my clothing faces. So if I have anything centered like buttons or a closure, I don't get it going this way off to the side. It's staying centered with my body, not centered through the center of my form. So I have this little built-up shape, and now I'm going to use it for reference. I could draw it bigger for a croquis, and I'm going to do this simply on this piece of paper. That way we can kind of track along with me, but I'm going to do this in pencil. I usually don't take the time to figure out things like hair. I will do a simple face on the croquis. Before we do, well, let's do the croquis. I'll leave the face simple for now, then we'll do heads, come back and finish. Okay, so I'm looking at my total form. I'm going to sketch in my head first and get that about the size I want. If I need to go through and sketch out like my 9 heads, that way I'm sure that I'm hitting all of those points. So let's just do this really quick. So if this is 1 head, I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 9's gonna hit the very bottom of my page here, because, well, this page is not that long. Then I'm gonna curve, I'm gonna set the orientation of my face, facing about the same as my drawing here. I'm going to draw my S curve in, and now I'm gonna begin mapping things here using the same relationship, but also making them, especially when it comes to like making sure my leg's long enough. All right, I have my shoulder. The front of that curves there, and now I can look at more of the lines that I've already figured out and drawn, so that I don't have to draw in all of the skeletonness again. Let's see. We don't want that to hit any longer than down through there. So let's put our hip. Really want that to pop more. Okay. Get these major points in. And then often I just end up mapping in like the circles. That way I'm giving myself a reference, but I don't have to take all of the time to draw in everything, like all of my stick and bones pieces. Okay. The good news is that once you've drawn a pose once, it gets easier and easier. So you'll get faster at it. All of this is just really great practice. And it's practice that's built into just drawing. And so you get better, you start noticing more things about how you like the ratios of your form to fit. Okay. Like, I like to give a little flatness to my elbow and keep it a little bit more angular. And then, okay, hand, hand. Okay. Legs. Let's look at these legs, how long they are. Okay. I can kind of see through my paper. So maybe like, okay, so these, keeping in mind how those knees sit, and then I'm gonna want my ankles, that's way too far, oops, to hit here, and then I'll give the rest of this space to my feet. Okay.
So you ended at 5 or 4?
For my torso, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 is where the bottom of my torso hits. And then the rest of this gets devoted to leg.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, in actuality, people's head to torso and their legs are about the same length. In Fashion Week, extend them a bit longer.
So legs is 5?
Oops. Legs ends up being 5, yes. So we have our knee. That actually does not feel wide enough compared to my, maybe I just don't have this sticking out as far. I have to keep going back and looking. Let's see. I think what I want here. Something like that, and then give a little bit of squareness to my knees. There we go. I just wasn't bringing the calf width down far enough, I don't think. I was keeping it a bit more less curvy than should be. Okay. There's something a little bit up with this leg. I'm trying to figure out what it is. If it's just that it needs to come more in front, maybe. It probably won't matter because I'll probably cover it in clothes. And then I can give myself a little foot. I don't get too picky about things like the foot, or just more of a gesture of what type of footwear it is, because I will probably switch that up too. So if it's a flat or a heel, I'll sketch that in, but I'm not gonna get super invested in like, oh, is it a strappy sandal or anything like that, because these drawings get reused a lot for me. That way I don't necessarily have to draw a new piece every time. If there's anywhere where I decide, oh, I think I want to just exaggerate that a little bit more, I come back in and make those adjustments. Maybe I just want to shorten my pelvis there. Okay. So I have a rough drawing, and this is good enough for me for a croquis. I'm going to cover a majority of it in clothing anyway. So this is my croquis.